This is Ready Set Reiki, a podcast about Reiki, the universal energy life force, from the curious beginner to the seasoned master teacher, welcoming all systems, all lineages, and all levels. Reiki is a journey and not a destination, and on this Ready Set Reiki journey, I refer to myself as a guide rather than a host, as I too am traveling, supporting others, and learning on this Reiki journey as well. And with that said, I am your guide, Tracy Searight. Now joining me on my journey today is Kayce Laine. Now she is a certified sound, crystal, and Reiki practitioner, and she is based in Nashville, Tennessee. As a lifelong musician with a degree in music from the University of Virginia, she earned her certifications in crystal and Azui Reiki healing, as well as a diploma in sound healing with crystal bowls with the International Sound and Healing Academy. She now serves as an associate teacher for the Sound Healing Academy, teaching workshops and trainings, new sound healers across the world. Her clients have included TikTok, the Recording Academy, Music Cares, Prescription Songs, and she's facilitated in music venues, including the Nashville Symphony, and she has shared a sound bath to the cast of the season 16 of the Lifetime Channel show, Married at First Sight, and her work and insights have been featured in publications, including Thrive Global, You Aligned, Very Well, Mind, and many more. Her sound bath recordings have also gathered millions of streams on Spotify. Kayce, welcome to Ready, Set, Reiki.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, well, let's begin our journey together. I can't wait. You do all the things that I absolutely love: Reiki, sound healing. I love it. I love it. I love it. So let's begin. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So, my bio says a lot of it, but part of the backstory is that I moved to New York City directly after college to join a indie electro pop band. I was
Mhm.
doing music full time in New York, and when I met my now husband in the studio here in Nashville, a music project brought me here, and we met. We ended up making a record together, falling in love. I moved to Nashville to be with him, and live happily ever after, which we have. But along that way, I ended up working in my first real day job because, like I said, up until that point, I'd just done music full time, and that was really it. And once I got this full time day job, it really put a damper on my creativity and my
Mm.
my music in general. I just wasn't able to get into that headspace of being open to create anymore. And because of that, I started really getting more into different types of meditation and ended up going through those different certifications with Reiki, with Crystal, and then the biggest one for me has been my sound healing journey. And I went through a level 1 and level 2 training with the International Sound Healing Academy. And as soon as I was done with my level 2, I quit my day job and have been doing it full time ever since. So it's been a little over 3 years now that I've been doing this work, and it is incredible. I'm like so grateful for this little pivot. It's still very musical, obviously, so it still checks a lot of boxes, but it's just a little more my speed now that I'm in my 30s, you know?
Right, right. Beautiful. So, sound healing. When did sound healing come into your life? Did you find it or did it find you?
Great question. I think a little bit of both, you know. I think I was really open to, like I said, getting into different types of meditation. I did transcendental meditation. I still do that every day. And that is a form of sound meditation, right? Like it's a mantra that you're repeating in your mind, even though it's not out loud.
Mhm.
It's still a form of sound meditation. And I went to my first sound bath. Actually, I did go to a gong bath in New York, but it really
Mm.
didn't like resonate with me as much until I came to Nashville and I went to my first sound bath with crystal bowls. And I really saw the woman who was facilitating, who I now know fairly well here in Nashville. I was like, I want to do this. And I ended up buying my first crystal bowl kind of at the same time that I was doing my crystal healing
Mhm.
certification because I wanted to add a layer of that. And once I got my first bowl, I don't know if you have any crystal bowls. As you can see behind me, I have a lot. This isn't even
Yeah.
all of them.
Yeah. If you were
Um,
in my other room, I think I had over 21 of them.
okay, then you know what happened. You got one bowl, and then next thing you know, you've got 20.
Guilty as charged.
Right. Yeah. So that's kind of how it all happened. It all kind of built. It wasn't, my intention when I first started out wasn't I'm gonna quit my job to do this work full time. I still kind of had this narrative in my mind of like, either you are following your passion and you're like living on like in the hallway room of a railroad apartment in Brooklyn, which is what I did in New York, or you have the day job and you have the financial stability but you don't have the like passion. So I really kind of thought like you couldn't have both, and I proved that wrong, which has been really cool.
Wow, wonderful, wonderful. Do you prefer the crystal bowls over the Himalaya bowls?
I do, yeah. I have
Okay.
a few Himalayan bowls. I think they're really great for playing directly on the body, and I use them in my
Yeah.
one-to-one sessions because,
Yes.
well, for a
Yes.
number of reasons, they're less fragile, so people
Hmm.
aren't as scared to move and breathe when they're on top of them. But also they just have a deeper vibration. You can get them in lower frequencies that are gonna just feel so penetrating and really like vibrate people's bones in their body
Yeah.
in a way that crystal bowls don't necessarily do. So they have their place in my life for sure, but I mean nothing compares to a beautiful crystal singing bowl to me. Their resonance, I use Crystal Tones alchemy bowls, and they just have this beautiful sustain, this really clear sound. You can layer them because they're so musical and they're tuned to the Western musical scale.
Hmm.
You can really get musical with them, which is what my my sound baths end up being fairly
Yeah.
musical. I can't
Yeah.
can't
Yeah.
can't help myself.
Yeah.
But because of that, I find a big part of my passion right now is really trying to educate people in music theory, and I'm finishing up a course right now that'll be available this fall called Music Theory for Sound Healers, because there's a lot of considerations with crystal bowls
Hmm. Hmm.
that's different from other sound healing instruments just because of the fact that you can play them with each other and layer notes, and you really
Yeah.
need to know what you're doing
Yes.
musically to
Yeah.
be able to create a
Yeah.
harmonious experience for
Sure.
people.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I think many that just kind of, let's say, take something online or take that 1 day training, the realization that there is a perfect fifth here, right?
Yeah, it's a responsibility, and it's funny just because, there's no regulatory body over the sound healing world, and people
No.
can go on Amazon and buy their top fund crystal bowl set and go to their yoga class and call themselves a sound healer, and that happens a lot.
Oh, it's,
But there's
yeah.
there's so much to it's a responsibility that really needs to be respected in
Oh,
the same
yeah.
way that
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
yoga teacher or a physical therapist or trainer, like you wouldn't work with those people if they had no background or
Mhm.
experience or certifications. So why treat sound healing any differently?
Right. Many think that they can just, buy the bowls and play around with them, and they're not realizing that it affects the body. When
Mhm.
I do sound baths, and one of the things as I guide them through the experience, if they feel triggered in any way, I tell them to kind of lift their finger up so I can shift it, because I'll have people say, "Wow, I felt it in my jaw," or "I felt it here. I felt, just these sensations." So you're affecting people by playing this.
You
And
absolutely
many
are.
people just say, "Oh, it's cool. Look how easy it is. I can just move clockwise, right?"
Right.
And I'm making sound. So yeah, definitely good to study. So, what is the common misconception about sound healing? You've been out, you are trained, right? You've
Right.
got the certification, the degree to back it up. What is the misconceptions?
Well, I think we kind of were just talking about one of them, and that is that you can just grab the bowls and make it a thing,
Mm-hmm.
without necessarily having the background to go with it. I think, from an outsider's perspective, it is something that I think, it has gotten way more popular in the past few
Mm-hmm.
years for sure. However, a lot of people still don't understand what it is, and like explaining it to people can sometimes be difficult. And I had this one guy a couple years ago. I like showed up. I was actually doing a sound bath for Zach Brown band with his band before they recorded a record. And I get there with all my bowls and stuff, and this guy, I was like, "Hey, I'm Kayce. Do you know why I'm here?" And he goes, "All I know is you're the water girl." And I was like, "What?" It made no sense to me. Like a week later, I was like, "Oh, it's because of bath." Like he thought sound bath that there was going to be like water or like a bathtub there. And so I think, the name sound bath can stir up a lot of confusion for people.
Mm-hmm.
So that's usually the biggest hurdle. And once you start to kind of explain a little more, like, "Oh, no, it's just a sound meditation," they're like, "Is it yoga?" And it's like, "No, you're not going to be moving around. You just lay there, you're comfortable." So, I think that is probably the trickiest thing to kind of convey to people, to have them understand what exactly it is. And there's
Mm.
so many layers to it. There's, just our natural relationship to sound that we can talk about with them to have them understand what it is. And there's also, more scientific elements to it as well. So, it really depends on the person you're talking to of where you want to take it as far as how to
Right,
explain what it is.
right, right. So you had mentioned a little bit that you had a little bit of Reiki training. What system of Reiki did you study?
I studied Usui Reiki, and I actually had two different. I went through training two different times, and the first time, it's funny. The first training I did, I got a lot out of in a lot of ways, but I didn't feel super connected to it after
Mm-hmm.
that, and so I did a re up. I did another training again last year of 1 and 2, just to kind of reinvigorate my relationship with the practice. And that was really great. I learned a lot of other things there. So I feel like having those two different trainings under my belt really made me feel more confident with that practice. And I definitely would encourage people to, it's, I'm sure and with any type of thing like this, the instructor and the energy of the experience really does matter. And
Yes.
I think, the mistake I made the first time around was that I just did one that fit in my schedule. I still had my day job. I fit it into a weekend. It was like, it was really affordable. I think it was $100 per level, and then after that, I was like, you know what? I wish I'd invested a little more and done it in a situation where
Mm.
it felt like there was a little more integrity around it, like it was a little more sacred than it felt,
Yes.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
so that's what
Right.
I got out of my second one, which was great.
Right.
So I
Right. I
definitely
mean,
encourage people who maybe feel a similar way to not be afraid to go through a training again and like get the attunement again. Like it's okay to freshen up.
yeah, I always say at least your first level go to a real person. I mean, there's fabulous resources online, even as little as $14.99. But it really makes a difference when you're live with that person. Now you don't have to be in person, but the way we're communicating on Zoom, that's perfectly fine. But it really makes a difference. And as you were telling the story, it made me think about when I was in kindergarten. I did not have the warm and fuzzy kindergarten teacher. It was in the mid 70s, and she honestly probably should have retired. And she was not very nice. And, my mother at the time couldn't put me in preschool, so many of the students in my class had preschool. And so she really didn't have the patience for me. And it was such a bad experience for me in kindergarten that I recalled at 5 years old saying, I'm going to grow up and I'm going to be a teacher so that way my students will enjoy coming to school. I mean, I
Oh
just
my
hated
gosh.
going to school. I would make myself sick. I just didn't want to be around this person and her energy. And what a difference that makes with a teacher, any teacher, quite honestly. It can really spark it. My own children have had teachers along their journey. My one son doesn't like art now because of one particular teacher in school. My other daughter doesn't like Spanish because of one particular teacher. So it can
Right.
really change somebody So yeah, teachers make a big difference with that. So.
They do.
So, as you are out working, helping others, raising their frequencies, raising their vibrations, what has been the biggest challenge or struggle you have faced in your own healing journey?
My own healing journey. I think I mean, to me, for better or for worse, it's all very connected to my business and just my overall like mental well-being with it. I think, you know, for anyone starting out creating and running their own business, you can have a lot of fears come up and a lot of, you know, just not necessarily doubts. I don't feel like I've doubted myself as much as just doubting that it could be possible
Mm,
to do. Because I haven't, at least at the time, I hadn't really seen people doing exactly what I wanted to be doing. And so I think just really having patience with the process and really having a heart of gratitude for
mm,
every step of the way is really, really important because it's so easy to get in our head and get discouraged and feel like, imposter syndrome coming in, or like there's so many people doing it now. Like, who am I to come in? Like, there's no place for me. There's so many things like that that have come up for me along the way. And really just trusting that my energy, kind of like what you were saying, it's like I will bring in the people that are meant for me and really putting as much faith in that as I can, and being grateful for every single day that I get to do this work, and really trying to be super conscious of that every day.
very good. Sounds like a great plan, right? Always try to be 1% more better than you are today.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah. So, when it's time for you to get that energetic tune up to help raise your frequency, what are some qualities that you look for in a sound healer?
Well, it's funny you say that. Because I don't go to as many sound baths as you may think,
Sure, of
mostly
course, of
because
course.
I I do them so frequently throughout the
Hmm.
week that when I have my night off, I'm usually not going to a sound bath.
Sure, sure,
But
sure.
what I do to help me stay aligned and to like really feel balanced and receive is I get body work done. I get massages, and like I just had a 2-hour massage yesterday because it was time. I do them about once a month. It's always 2 hours. It's like that is my time to receive. And I
Right.
think it's so important for anyone in this line of work where you're giving and you're constantly, putting other people's first, and everything that you're doing, from the conversations you're having with them before the sessions to the sessions themselves, to just, really being of service throughout the day, to really allow yourself to receive is so, so important. And that actually is what I do.
Very good. Very good. Is there anything particular that qualities that you look for in a Reiki practitioner when you were looking at your trainings? Was there a certain thing about a particular teacher that resonated with you?
Yeah, I think what's funny in the Sound Healing Academy and what I teach, especially with level 2, and even with my mentorship program, like I work with people in their mentor as a mentor to help them with their businesses as they're kind of getting things off the ground, is it's all part of like the step one, which is a connection.
Mm,
And that to me is how you find them online. It's what their website energy feels like.
mm,
It's how they reply to the emails. It's, oftentimes for me too, it's their social media. What is the energy that they're putting out there before you've even gotten to meet them, and I think everyone's going to be attracted to different things, and that's the great thing about it. But that's really one thing that I look for, is just getting a sense of their energy virtually.
mm-hmm.
Not necessarily meeting them, but kind of real, like, okay, like I like the way that they feel,
Yeah.
with their website, how they're engaging in their social media and all of that. Like that to me is important. And also, obviously, looking for someone who has experience. I think that to me, whether it's sound healing or Reiki or any type of modality, especially in the spiritual realm, to me, it is very important to have certifications.
Yes.
I'm definitely, obviously I give certifications, so that's, of course, I care about
Of
that.
course.
But to me, it is very important just for integrity's sake to have that background and experience that I feel like, okay, I can really trust them, because I think that's really what it comes down to with any healing modality is safety. And if you feel safe surrendering yourself energetically to someone, it's a very sacred exchange. And if I'm going to be fully receiving from anyone, I need to feel safe with them.
Hmm.
And to me, I feel safer when I know somebody has a little experience, and it doesn't need to be like decades. Obviously, like I've only been doing this work for, from when I started in 2019 with my first certification, and so
Sure.
I'm like 5 years in, but I've been doing it a lot in those five
Sure.
years,
Of
training,
course.
constantly learning and evolving and all of that. So that to me is the most important part.
Very good. So many Reiki practitioners, healers, add many other different modalities, and sound healing is one of them. So you are an associate teacher for the Sound Healing Academy. You do workshops, you do trainings. You have helped elevate many sound healers across the world. What advice would you give someone who's just entering this sound healing profession?
I feel like I have a lot of advice.
Okay.
um, yeah, I think what's really cool from the vantage point that I've gotten to have with teaching people from stay-at-home moms who just happen to come to a sound bath and were like, I don't really know why I'm here, but I'm here. Something was calling me to be here. And to the people who have bought the bowls and are doing it already.
Hmm.
I've had people from all walks of life, men, women, all ages, people who are looking for a new thing to do in retirement, to people who are still in school and want to like have fun with something else on the side. So there's been such a, a difference in the people that I've worked with, training them. And I think a, a big hurdle for them is often just the imposter syndrome.
Mm.
And I think the biggest piece of advice I would give you is, yes, go through the certification process, because when you invest the time, the money, the energy, all of that into the practice, it's going to just naturally build your confidence as a practitioner. And that confidence, coming back to what I just said, is part of how people can feel safe with you. And it doesn't mean you have to go all the way through to a level 2 training, but the level 2s that I teach are a full year long, and you
Mm.
have dozens and dozens and dozens of practice sessions that you're doing in them. And every time you show up at a sound bath to with your bowls, with every person that walks through the door, everything is an opportunity to learn from. And there's so many little, I had a student yesterday on a coaching call, and she was like, what's the worst thing that's ever happened to you in a sound bath? And I'm like, no one's ever asked me that before, but every single sound bath is an has I haven't had like a disastrous thing that something huge happened. Obviously, breaking a bowl would be like up there,
Hmm.
but every single time it's like, oh, I forgot my O-rings, I left them at home, or my mallets, I have to use these backup mallets that luckily I brought,
Hmm.
or the AC couldn't be turned off and it was creating a frequency that made my bowl sound. There's all these little things that happen, But when we give ourselves that practice time during a certification process, we can kind of like make all of those little mistakes and lessons along the way feel
Mm,
um, less big because
right.
we give ourselves a little more grace of like, oh, I'm still learning. Oh, I'm still a student. I'm not, I'm not charging for this. There are case
Hmm.
studies or whatever. So to me, that's really where the value of going through certifications comes in. And once you're on the other end of it, you've been doing it, you've learned all of these lessons so much, and remembered to bring extra O-rings, remembered to
Hmm.
bring extra mallets in your
Right,
car, just so
right.
you circumvent some of these little mistakes you made when you were practicing. And that helps you be more confident
Yeah,
in yourself and show up in a way that is, again, going to make people trust you more and
yeah,
feel safer with you and have a better experience. So,
yeah. And some things even that you don't sometimes get in that certification, like how do you protect your bowls, right? How do you wrap them up as you are traveling, right? And people don't think of that.
yeah,
That's
well, I
all.
do teach that in my classes because
That
I
see?
travel a lot with my bowls and they all fit into this and fly across the world. In fact, I just got back from Iceland where I
Yeah,
brought a bunch of bowls to Iceland and they
yeah.
made it back safe and sound.
Wonderful.
So,
And I like how you took the time. It isn't like a weekend certification and then next weekend you're doing sound baths, and charging. Yeah.
right. Yeah, and that's one of the big values I think that the particular trainings that I do,
Mm-hmm.
it really forces people, and they're also, honestly, they're a lot less expensive than a lot of them out there that
Sure.
even are just a weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because even my level one, we do have a weekend in person workshop, but then there's 3 months after that for the rest of
Yeah.
the course. It's kind
Sure.
of a sandwich course training. Same with the level two. We have 4 days. Next week I have Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday in person with my level two, but then they have a full year from the workshop to complete the entire course and the case studies and all of that. So they are really in depth and it can be a little intimidating for people
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, but at the end of the day, once my level two students complete level two, they're already doing it. They already have their
Yeah.
website by then. They've already invested so much time, energy, money that they're like, yeah, okay, this is it. I'm
Yeah.
gonna go for it.
Yeah. Yeah, but you're getting quality. That's the difference
Right.
versus,
Exactly.
kind of, and those people are going to these things, their intentions pure. They're like, yeah, this is great. This
Totally.
works with my schedule. And then they're getting out there and then they're like, okay, well, I did it in a weekend. So now let's start and advertise. And those of us who've been doing this for years, training for years, studying, it's like, okay.
Yeah, and as someone who, I tell my students this all the time, I tell myself this all the time, like people will be able to feel the difference,
Mhm.
in energetically in how
Sure.
you show up, in your skill, in all of that. I really do believe that, like the cream rises to the top. So
Sure.
I try not to like get too in my head or
Yeah.
help other people get not too in their
Right,
head when
right, right.
they're like, hey, I know this girl who just like did this weekend level two, and I'm like still like not even halfway through my level two, and it's been 6 months, and I'm like, I know it happens. We
It
can't
happens.
control it all.
Yeah, yeah, because many people think how in Reiki it's the intention, right? The intention of Reiki, you let it flow and kind of set back. But this is a different animal, right? Because you're dealing with the sound, the frequencies with it. And if you don't have that match there and you hit one note, then the other's like, whoa, those don't
Right.
sound good together. That's going to change that experience in that sound bath. So,
Absolutely. And
yeah.
dynamics too. You can get into a situation where people are playing the bowls really, really loud. And what I always say is that they're singing bowls, not screaming bowls, right? Like we want to just because yes, it feels cool to like really
Yeah.
fill the space with these crystal bowls that like
Mm-hmm. Of
can penetrate everything. Like
course.
you don't really want to be doing that for an hour.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And
Like that could actually mess people up.
oh, yeah. And I know of someone who picked up the bowl and it wasn't my bowl, thank goodness, but they just kept going around and the bowl cracked. Like
Mhm.
even to know when to stop it from letting that go,
Yeah.
and you can really do some damage there with it. So, yeah.
I've seen the videos of that same kind of thing happening. It's like,
You
oh,
could see it on your face like, oh,
it's the
my
worst.
heart, my heart.
I know. I was like, as soon as you started telling the story, I was like, I don't even want to know.
So, what books do you recommend?
Oh my gosh, I feel like I have so many good books. I actually have a couple of them right here. Um, I really like Jonathan Goldman's books. I really
Isn't he
love the stuff.
great?
Yes.
Yeah.
His books are so easy to read. So like
Mhm.
for me, as someone who like this is my job and it can feel like work and sometimes I don't want to read the books that are just going to feel like I'm studying. I feel like he has such an approachable way and an easy way of explaining things that makes it really enjoyable to read. So I really love his Seven Secrets of Sound Healing. I love his The Humming Effect. That's
Mhm.
one that I really learned a ton from, and now I hum all the time whenever I have anxiety and have people do it in my sound baths and have my one-to-one clients do it. I also really love The Healing Power of Sound by Dr. Mitchell Gaynor. I think he had such an incredible, groundbreaking way of working with crystal bowls specifically in his practice as an oncologist. And he has a great way of kind of bringing in the Western and Eastern medical worlds together in his book. So I definitely always recommend that one. And then finally, I would say Human Tuning by
Mhm.
John Bolio. I think his book, I mean, I learned so many fascinating things from that book about intervals, and we do his interval protocols that he has for tuning forks with the crystal bowls as a part of the level 1 training because his protocols are so cool and just learning about the anechoic chamber and our nervous system.
Right.
There's so much good stuff in that book that I always recommend students read that one too.
Very good. And for our Reiki listeners, check out Jonathan Goldman's Reiki Chants to
Ooh, I have not
play.
read that one.
So it's not a book, it's his Spotify music, Reiki Chants, where he'll chant
Oh,
the symbols. So it's very interesting, very beautiful.
oh,
So
okay.
keeping the secrecy of the symbols. So he chants it. So I usually play that a lot too.
That's
Yeah.
very
And
cool.
also check out your work on Spotify as well, right? We'll give
Yeah,
a little
while you're
plug there.
there, might as well get.
While
It's
you're there, check
it's
that
so
out.
funny. My sound healing tracks have really done super well, even though they took me as long as the songs are to record them, basically.
Yep.
Versus my pop music that was literally 6 years in the making with my
Yeah.
husband, and
Yeah.
no one cares. That was a really interesting sign from the universe of
Yeah.
like,
Humbling, isn't it?
yeah, I was like, oh, cool. The amount of blood, sweat, and tears that went into that pop record that
I'm
has,
sure.
maybe a couple of thousand streams combined versus these little crystal bowl tracks that
Yeah.
are, it took
Yeah.
me, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
5 minutes in the studio to do,
Right.
and
Right.
that have really gotten a lot more attention. So
Yeah. It's
it's
like you
interesting.
write an amazing piece that you think's, perfection, and then it's the ASMR, the tapping, right? The
Right.
tapping,
It's
you
so
know,
funny.
thousands and thousands of hits, right? And
Right. I had a friend who was similar. She was like a musician, a musician,
Mhm.
and like she like made some ASMR track and it like blew up and like no one cares about her pop music. So it's the same thing.
Exactly.
So
Yeah. Like you're tapping on a piece of wood, on a block of
right.
wood, right? And you,
Yeah, it's
so.
wild. It's wild.
So, what other services do you offer? Classes, events, trainings, workshops?
Yeah. So, like I said, I've been hard at work on this music theory for sound healers course. That's something I'm super excited about. I think it's going to be great for people who are into sound healing in general, and even just musicians who are curious about how it all kind of comes together. It's very crystal bowls centric. And then, yeah, I teach fairly regularly. I have about 10 workshops, trainings a year with the International Sound Healing Academy, and I try to travel as much as I can for those. My next one is well, I have my level 2 next week, but then September I have a level 1 in Washington, D.C. area, which I'm excited about. I do them in Virginia Beach, my hometown. I have done a couple in Atlanta, here in Nashville, obviously. So I try to bop around a bit to make those accessible to people who aren't local to me. I also have lessons that I do just virtually or in person. So if people want to learn more about crystal bowls and don't necessarily feel like they want to do a full training, they can work with me that way. I also sell crystal bowls. So I am a distributor for crystal tones. And I also work with a couple other crystal bowl retailers for the frosted bowls as well. So if getting bowls is something you're interested in, I have a free bowl buying guide that I made that's like tells you
Nice.
all the differences between the bowls, why some are, $100 and some are thousands of dollars.
Right,
So
right, right, right.
there's like such a big gap. You're like, how and why
Yeah,
and what is it?
right,
So
right.
it's a YouTube video that I made
Oh, good.
on my website that you can do for free. And I even have a little find your bowl mate quiz that you can take on my site too, where you can
Oh,
kind of,
that's cute.
see what kind of bowl is the one that's for you.
I love
So
it.
let's see, what else do I do? I feel like I do so much, but yeah, those are kind of the biggest things I think.
Okay, very good, very good. So, how can we get in touch with you? Someone's listening, they're like, yes, this is my teacher. I want to connect. How do we connect with you?
So obviously my website, which is just kaycelane.com, I'm sure you can kind of link it in the show notes for people. That's probably the best way to kind of get an overview of what I do. Also, the one thing I just remembered in talking about this that I do offer is my mentorship and working with people and working on their business. And I've worked with people who are doing Reiki. I've worked with massage therapists. You don't have to be just a sound healer to work
Sure.
with me in this capacity. So, side note, but you can get more information about my mentorship program on my website too. And then I'm very active on my Instagram, which is just at Kayce Laine. And so you can come meet me there. And I try to be pretty educational with what I post about, about crystal bowls, for example, like retailers that you should avoid versus reputable ones, not even just people that I work with, just to try to avoid mistakes. I have a thing about how to pack your bowls and be safe with packing them. I do stuff with different frequencies and comparing 432 to 440 and all of that good stuff. So I try to be educational as much as I can on my Instagram page. So definitely come meet me there if you want to learn more too.
All right, perfect. Well, that ends the first part of our journey, and I'm going to continue to be your guide through the next part, which is questions from social media, from listeners, and Reiki and sound energy students. So here we go. Number one,
Amazing.
can you describe any daily spiritual practices that contribute to your success?
Yes, actually. In fact, my morning routine is so important to me. I think that even when I'm traveling, it's something that I make time for. And if I have to be somewhere in the morning, I've had extra time before then to wake up to make sure I have time, especially for my TM, my transcendental meditation. I do that every single morning. That's a non-negotiable to me. I also pull an oracle card every morning from a different deck, whatever
Hmm.
I'm feeling that day. And I also chant mantra for 11 minutes. To me, it really helps just open up my throat chakra. It's also very relaxing, kind of getting into like the humming effect. The mantra I chant every morning is Om Mani Padme Hum,
Hmm.
and sending good energy out into the world. Like I get so much from those 11 minutes, and it's really helpful to me, I think, to get me in a higher frequency. And then I also journal every morning, and that's a habit that I got into when I read The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron, which was a life-changing book for me. Her 3 morning pages every day just stuck with me, and it's been almost 10 years. And I try to end at least those morning pages with gratitude and getting just into a grateful heart space before I go on with my day. So that's my morning routine that I can't not do.
All right. Well, thank you for that. That's some wonderful techniques to maybe bring into our daily lives.
Mhm.
So, number two, how do you incorporate Reiki into your sound baths?
So I incorporate Reiki into my one-to-one sessions, and those are my vibrational healing sessions where it's Reiki, crystals, and sound. And I kind of created my own little method with these three elements to get people into a really relaxed state. Obviously, for one, move energy around as they need, and just really create a loving, supportive, and relaxing environment for them to heal themselves. So, yeah, I start the session with doing a scan, and then I play a Himalayan bowl directly on the body. And then as after I do that, I do Reiki, and then I lay crystals on their chakras, and then I do a sound bath, and then I take everything off and rescan everything and make sure things are feeling more balanced, and then the session is done.
Hey, beautiful. Sounds lovely.
People are into it.
Wonderful. So, a associate teacher for the Sound Healing Academy. You've done workshops, trainings all across the world, and publications. You have played for a television show cast. You're on Spotify. So, where do you see yourself a year from now? What other goals would you like to achieve?
It never ends. The goalpost just keeps on moving right along with you, as I'm sure you know. Um, Again, I try to be super grateful for everything, and I just finished this past weekend a really big gig at the Nashville Symphony with 500 people. It was this incredible experience that I got to participate in, and so ultimately what I'm hoping to do in addition to my course, I really am hopeful that my music theory course does well for me, and doing a level 2 next year as well for that, and continuing to evolve as a teacher. Musically, I really want to lean into this kind of different sound bath experience that I've done a couple times here, where it's not just me and my bowls. It kind of taps into my like New York synth days, where I have a track of synth bass that
Mm,
runs underneath my bowls to kind of elevate the experience a little bit, and
yeah.
incorporating vocals more because I am a singer. And so creating an experience that's not necessarily something that I can do in the yoga studios or, a lot of the spaces that I and a lot of my students are in now,
Mm-hmm.
trying to take my experiences to like a bigger stage, basically, where I can, where there's a little more power behind it, amplification, and just kind of create a different experience for people that they don't necessarily get elsewhere. So that's really the next phase for me, is really kind of lean into that, and starting to explore these different venues, like music venues for that, because I think there's a really cool space for that.
Cool. Very good. Well, that was our last question. So, as we've been talking, is there anything you might have forgotten to share or something that you would like to tell the listeners? So, the floor is yours.
Oh my gosh, honestly, I feel like I got all the bases covered here. I think just feel free to reach out to me. I'm here for questions, especially if you want to buy crystal bowls. I I see people make so many mistakes all the
Mm,
time, and I really hate that for them. So
yeah,
if
shopping on
you're
Temu.
right, oh my gosh. That was actually one of my most recent ones, was bold retailers to avoid part two. Timu was in there. So yeah, just knowing that I'm very here and available for you for any crystal bowl questions you may have, not necessarily trying to sell you on them, but just making sure you don't make mistakes, and taking advantage of my bowl buying guide to educate yourself before you make that decision, because these are special instruments that you're using in a healing capacity, and you really want to be working with instruments that are of integrity.
Yeah.
Like getting them from Timu or Amazon, Top Fund, like these companies where they're from China and they're made with very sketchy business practices and labor.
Yeah.
You just want to know that you're getting them from somewhere that feels good energetically. And
Yeah.
I think that's important. I think you're going to connect with them better. And I think
Yeah.
they might feel better because of that. So yeah, just feel free to reach out. And yeah, if you want to work with me mentorship wise, I'm here for you. If you want to do a training, I'm here for you. Whatever your needs are in the sound healing world, I am here. So thank you so much for having me on and letting me
Oh,
share all of these things. And
I
yeah, my
know.
music theory for sound healers course, definitely you
Yeah.
can get on the wait list for that if it's not already out by the time you're listening to this.
Sure. Wonderful. Well, thank you, Kayce, so much for taking time out of your very busy schedule to join me on this Ready, Set, Reiki journey.
Thank you so much. It was wonderful to connect.
Wonderful. All right, my wonderful listeners, if you would like your question featured on Ready Set Reiki, reach out at www.readysetreiki.com or check me out on social media. Also, check out Feather Sister Yoga and Reiki, where it offers a variety of yoga classes, Reiki classes, and Reiki trainings. I'm Tracy Searight, and this has been Ready Set Reiki.